All around the world, people are tuning in to see where Sunday Reset will take them. Now, the moment you've been waiting for all week. Presenting fresh ideas to reset your mind and transform your life, and empowering you to set up your intentions and tap into your greatness. It's time for Sunday Reset with me, your Breakthrough Coach, Nando Rodriguez. Are you ready? Let's go. Guys, thank you for tuning in to this week's Sunday Reset. We're super excited to have a celebrity hairstylist and beauty and grooming expert, David Lopez, with us in the house. Hey, David, how are you?
Hi. Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited that you agreed to be on the podcast. You know, the podcast mission is to help people reset for the next week, right? So like whatever occurred this past week, all the anger, the gunk, the mess, all of that, we leave it behind and we reset for the next week. So I'm excited to talk to you because as someone who is in the public eye, somebody who has, you know, a large following on social media, it's always interesting to hear and see what it is that you do in order to reset when you're having moments of doubt, self-confidence, things like that. So I just want to start off with, in your world, what constitutes a bad day? Like when you're having a bad day, what does that look like?
Right. I mean, a bad day for me, I mean, it can take on many forms, but a true bad day is when I feel like I have lost a sense of control, whether it be over, you know, my body image or my emotions or my career, when I just don't feel like I have control over the situation. And when I mean control, I mean I'm not able to properly manage the emotions that come with those things. That definitely creates a perfect storm for me, for sure.
And do you find that when you have one, you kind of have them in a row, or are they kind of like isolated? Oh, they don't happen as often?
Well, I have an anxiety disorder and I've dealt with, you know, clinical depression since I was 11 years old. So I think that having that introduced to me at a young age, I was taught very early on to know that it's okay to have stretches of time where it feels that way. I think, you know, through practice, I've learned to develop strategies that help me identify whether or not this is something chemical in my body that's happening, or if I'm really feeling something that I can control and I can perhaps change in that moment. So I've learned to ride the waves, whether or not they happen in succession back to back or they happen, you know, isolated. I'm pretty good at this point of understanding if it's like an isolated moment or if I'm having a day where I say to myself, you know what, I'm just not getting it together today. That's okay. And I have self-care practices that help me find ways to move beyond that moment. But yeah, I mean, there are times when it happens like day after. It's like, it feels like the whole week was just really challenging, or sometimes it feels like everything just happens all at once or it doesn't happen at all. So it ebbs and flows for sure.
Got it. And, you know, thank you for sharing with us. Thank you for being so vulnerable and authentic with us and just sharing your story. You know, I think I love the movement where we're going, where it's okay to talk about that. These are the things that we go through. And it just makes us so relatable. And to the people listening, it's like, what? I see him on Instagram and he's like doing these tutorials and he's like got this confidence of like a lion. And to know that someone like you still has these days where, you know, you mentioned self-body image or, you know, whatever it is that triggers it.
Right.
Where it's so relatable because we go through that, you know. Right. One of the things that occurred to me that happened was I worked in advertising in the HR and media. And so I would create content to bring people and, you know, like, oh, come work for our company. And I would create blogs and videos and entertainment for them. And I got let go a year and a half ago. And I went into a straight depression because for me, I didn't know who Nando was without that job title.
Right.
And now that I no longer had that job title, I didn't know who I was. And so
Right.
it wasn't until I discovered that who I am is not who I, what I do. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was able to uncollapse that, but it was an 8-month journey for me. And inside that 8 months, depression, anxiety, panic attacks, what would people think? Oh my God. You know how long it took? It took me a very long time to switch my LinkedIn profile from that last company, because I was like, as soon as I hit, I'm no longer there, the questions would start coming in.
Right.
And I was all about like, what would people think? Oh, did he get fired? Did he, was he no good? And all these stories that I would create about myself. So how much of when you're going through whatever it is, bad hair day, whatever, and that one's, low on the scale, how much does like, what are people going to think impact you, or does it?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think about it. I think for a big chunk of my life, it was, what are people going to think, like in a negative way? Where now, when I think, what are people going to think, I switch the perspective to, will this help someone? So I've tried to take moments of those moments where I question, like, oh, what are people going to think, and turn them into, is there a seed of something in here of happiness or joy or self-reflection or awareness that might help someone? So I've tried to take those moments of, what are people going to think whenever I make certain decisions? Like even me posting a photo of myself in a wig on Instagram in the beginning was so like scary for me, because I had developed such a persona of like being a hypersexualized like Latin man, and 2 years ago I was like, I don't care anymore. Like I just want to be myself. And posting that first photo of me in a wig, I was like shaking. Like I was like, oh my God, this is so vulnerable and scary to share this side of myself that I have held so guarded, and only people close to me know, that now it's like out there in the world. So I do have moments of that. And I definitely have moments of, like last night I was in an event, and, I had moments of like, oh, what are people going to think of, me in person, because I do have this, persona on Instagram that I am, and I am a truly happy person. Like I like to be friendly and welcoming. And so when I meet people in person, I'm like, are they going to feel the same way when they meet me in person? Are they going to think that I'm a little bit shy or not quite as friendly or anything? So I have those moments, but I have to say I've worked really, really hard in the last specifically 2 years to kind of move beyond the negative part. Are they going to think I'm fat? Are they going to think I'm too gay? Are they going to think that I'm not this or not cool enough? Like I still have those little flitting moments, but now it's mostly like, am I going to help someone? Am I going to make someone feel accepted, make them feel good, make them feel happy, make them feel warm, make them feel welcome? Like that, those are the things that I've tried to switch over to.
That is such a great disruptor, right? The thought is there, what will people think? But instead of it, what will people think negatively? You're like, what will people think in a way that I can help them, right? So like you just flip that on its back, and it really puts you in a place of power. I was having this conversation with a friend yesterday, and it's like, you can totally be vulnerable standing inside of power, and that's what I think sometimes a lot of people think when you're vulnerable, right? It's like that little turtle out of its shell. Who's going to protect me? The world is dangerous. But you can actually stand inside your vulnerability, which is what you're saying, and be powerful. This is who I am. I'm powerfully showing up vulnerable. And we as humans can collapse so much, right? It's like, if I'm vulnerable, that means I'm weak. That means, I am opening a pathway to negativity or whatever. I bet you posting, because now I see your Instagram feed, and it's like, I don't know what your content schedule is like, but I just know, like, when I see you in a wig, it's just like, holy crap, like that just looks so sexy. It just looks so, and I'm from like a photography background and stuff, so I'm looking at it from like a whole different perspective, just like, holy crap, like the photo, the composition, the hair, like it just looks great. So I can only imagine like other people on your Instagram going, well, like maybe I can do this, or you're just influencing people,
which has happened now.
Especially like the little ones. Do you get little kids that reach out, or a younger demographic that's just like, oh my God, David, what you're doing is just really impactful?
I wouldn't say I get little kids, but I definitely I definitely have like high schoolers, like guys, and I can tell very obviously they're in high school.
So to me, those are little kids. I'm so old. So
yeah,
those
yeah,
are little kids.
yeah. They're little kids. Yeah, they're not like 9-year-olds, but they're definitely like teenagers that are kind of just like, wow, you're opening up a whole new world of self-care and like what it means to express yourself. And expressing yourself doesn't necessarily mean that you have to still put yourself in a box. Like you don't have to, subscribe to one thing of what it means to be a person, not just a gay person or a queer person or a Latino person, but what it means to be a human existing in this planet and experiencing this life. You don't have to subscribe to anything. You can take little fruits of everything and enjoy them all,
Yeah, it's like you're not defining yourself. You're not defining yourself by like one slice of the pie. You are the pie.
Yeah. I want when people think like, oh, you can't have your cake and eat it too. I'm always like, why would I not have a cake and not eat it? Like, I want to have the whole damn cake. Like, I don't need to like, you can't have your cake and eat it too, which I find is like this mentality of like, you can't have it all. And that's not true. You can have it all. You can have whatever makes you happy. You can, however, make it work as long as you're being, morally right. And not hurting people in the process.
What I tell my clients when they say things like that, like, I can't have it all, what I say is, according to who, right? Because what we tend to forget is when we're trapped inside that we can't have it all, or you can't have it all, or whatever, really what it is, it's a comparison. So I'm comparing A to B. And as you know, when we get trapped inside
in appearance.
When we get trapped inside the world of comparison, that's really when we start to, not really honor ourselves and respect our crafts, our unique gifts, all of that. So if I'm looking at you and your Instagram feed, and I'm looking at it in a way of like, well, why can't I, have all these great sponsorships, or why can't I XYZ? I'm really not even looking at like what I bring to the table because I'm so busy comparing myself. And then at that point, I create a story of, well, that's why I can't have it all. I don't have flawless skin like him. That's why I can't have it all. I don't have, hairstyling. I don't have, hairstyling superpowers like him. That's why I can't have it all. And yeah, it's just keeping ourselves trapped in that mentality. One of the things that you said, which I loved, was that you have now strategies. You've been inside this world since 11, right? And so now you have strategies and you have techniques. Would you share, like your top 2, top 3 that you would share with us on like when you're having those bad days, when you're waking up and you're just like, no, I have so much to be grateful for, but I just don't feel it right now. Da, da, da. What are those things that you do to get you back on the gratitude bus?
I'm a lot more empathetic and gentle with myself when I have those days. And sometimes that day might look like I'm just not going to be productive today and I'm not going to get something done that I needed to get done. And that's okay. Like tomorrow's going to come and I'll feel productive tomorrow. I'll feel the impetus to like get all these, projects off the ground. And I think having a certain level of empathy, people have started to lose, which we don't have empathy with others. So I have a very deep level of empathy with myself and forgiveness for myself in those days, because it used to be that I was like so hard on myself, and the language that I would use, like, oh, you're a loser, or like you didn't get this done. Look at this other person. They got all this done. They did this today. Like other people like have done this and that before noon, and you barely got one thing done. So when I have those days when I feel like I'm not being as productive, or I feel like I'm very emotional or sad or feeling anxious, I'm like, it's okay to feel this. Like, it's fine. Like, you're not a loser. You're not this. Like, I change the language. And then the other thing that I really like to do is sometimes I have strategies to bring myself back to reality. So when I'm having those moments, I'm like, okay, what is real? Like, what are the things that are actually real that are happening in my life? I am even simple things like I live in Brooklyn. I'm 34. I have done this, this, and this. I work with this person. This is what I do now. Sometimes I sit down and write it down. Sometimes I write the word, if I'm feeling very anxious, I just write the word no. And when I say the word no, it's me telling myself, no, like that is not happening right now. I also have affirmations. Like, it's funny, I haven't written the word no in a while. And I just said out loud. I have a client, Ashley Graham, who's now a friend of mine, and she has affirmations, and she taught me, things that you say to yourself in the mirror. And hers are, I am bold, I am brilliant, I am beautiful. And she says that, and she's like, and I learned so much from her, and that even though someone as powerful as her still has moments of self-doubt or like anxiety, that she's like, I say these words to empower myself. And so now it's mine. I just say, you can do this. You can do anything. You can do this. You can do anything. You're worth it. You belong here. And saying those words to myself, even in weird moments of like, I was on a plane and it was turbulent and I felt really anxious, and I was like, you can do this. You can do anything. You can do this. You can do anything. And even just saying that over and over, it's like you start to believe those words just the same as you say to yourself always, I'm fat, I'm this, I'm fat, I'm this. You start to believe that too. So if you start saying positive things, you start to believe it too. So those are the things I think that I integrate into my everyday life that help me get past those moments.
Wow. You know, a lot of what you're saying really are practices and strategies and techniques that I, you know, bestow onto my clients, right? And it's all about the language that you use. And it's all about, you know, what's real versus the story you're making up.
Right.
Like, have you done any transformational work? Like, have you done, like, literally, this is like classic NLP, classic transformation work, like?
Well, I'm in a creative field, but I'm also an incredibly curious person. And by curious, I mean, I'm always asking myself the why of everything. And I've been that way since I was a kid. I mean, and if there's information out there that I can somehow get, I will get it. This being said, I've also been in therapy since I was 11. You know, I was in therapy like pretty much all through high school, which, you know, and then I was medicated and decided to take myself off medication. And I think there was like a time where I just read everything, talked to people. I work with people every single day. So I'm just like, well, how did you manage this? How did you do this? I think having mentors in my life, I think having people that I respect in my life, surrounding myself with people who have elevated themselves, who have in turn elevated me, have brought all these practices from all different walks of life, from Buddhism, from self-help, from self-care, from this and that, and making it work for me. I think that's why I have these like things buzzing in me. And I'm also just, I'm a reader. I love to read. I mean, if there's like a self-help book, I've read it. If there's a therapy thing, I've read it. If there's a class I can take, I've done it. Like, I'm a very curious person, which I think has allowed me to kind of get to this place.
This conversation has been so it's going to be so impactful for everybody listening to it because you brought it. David, thank you so much for being on this week's episode.
Thank you so much for having
Sunday
me.
Reset. The conversation just flowed, right?
Yeah.
We're going to have you back on and have you like dive deeper into some of these modalities. But I really want to thank you for taking the time. And our audience, our listeners are just going to have a blast listening to you. I'll put in the links where they can find you. But obviously, David Lopez with 3 Z's on Instagram is the place to be.
Yeah. Thank you so much.